Welcome to Perspectives El Paso. I'm Professor Leon Blevins, Professor of Government at El Paso Community College. As you can see today, I'm in my athletic mode. Some of the ladies, as I walked in the building, they were walking over and they were checking my muscles, and that's fine, that's all right. I've got some muscles here. And so today we're going to be talking about especially basketball in El Paso, Texas, with a focus on two of the greatest coaches in El Paso's history, winning championships. Don Haskins at Texas Western that became UT El Paso, and Bob Leslie at Eastwood High School. And these two men connected up in the panhandle of Texas, I believe at Headley, Texas, and ended up in El Paso and changing this city forever. As you can see, for my centerpiece today, I have I'm wearing a shirt about TWC, and then this one. My next door neighbor, Barbara Miller Cager, longtime wife of Willie Cager, she brought me these from the Hall of Fame when the team, the Miners, was inducted into the National Basketball Memorial Hall of Fame. And she brought me a cap. So I did this as a centerpiece. And then I have a Wheatie box down there. And I have a very special guest today. I was hoping to have Mary Haskins, Don Haskins' wife, of many, many, many years on the program, but she's not able to be here today. This is a sensitive time in the life of the Haskins family because it's been several years in this very month that Don Haskins passed from our scene, but he left us so many wonderful crystal moments. So I have with me today Steve Haskins, one of the sons of Don Haskins. Steve, good to see you again.
Leon, good to see you.
Glad to have you on this program.
Thank you for having me.
And this is a program about memory lane. Exactly?
That sounds good to me.
Okay. First thing off, what memory comes to you when you see this?
Well, I was 7 years old when the Miners won it all, and we were, me and my brothers were staying. I think when they went to Lubbock, we stayed with John and Evelyn Balgini down the street. John was a trainer for, I think, with the Dodgers and also the Sun Kings, and he was a athletic trainer, so we're close to them. And I remember Latin hanging on the rim during one of the games, and at 7, I just wasn't.
But you were jumping all over the place.
I was not at that moment. My brothers, I think, 2 or 3 years later, I would have been.
Oh, okay.
But when the Miners won it all, and we were at the house, and my mom's parents were there staying with us, and I went outside with my brother Brent, and the house was toilet papered and the car was painted, and I asked my brother Brent, I said, well, why does everybody hate us? So that's how in tune I was to the whole thing. So, but soon after I realized, as I got older, each year, obviously the significance of it, even more so, I think, as time passed. What happened and how amazing it is to, school this size to win it all.
Well, let me tell you where I met your dad. I had taught 2 years in high school and then started studying and finishing a political science master's degree at Texas Western. And I lived on the far east side of El Paso, and I would drive across town and I would take a lunch. I'd go to the faculty lounge, and sometimes Don Haskins would walk in, come in for coffee, and maybe sometimes he'd have a treat or something, and we would get acquainted. We had some things in common. We both had lived up in the panhandle of Texas where they have blizzards, and then we both had young sons, and we both had taught in high school before we started at the college level. And so I was 29, I checked this. Well, I was 28 when I met him, and he was probably 35. The next year I was 29, and he was 36 when he won the national championship. So we're very excited about that, and I was there when they won it all, as you expressed it. So here we are, history has been made. We're still talking about it. Tell me about coaching. Now you're in sports now, right?
Well,
you're not coaching sports.
I was a professional golfer for 20 years.
A professional golfer, okay.
And so my dad was very involved in my career because it was, there was a connection. I mean, if you're playing pro golf or if you're a college basketball coach, his his philosophy was always, you know, if you're the guys that are the most mentally tough are the ones that succeed, and they can overcome certain things, you know, like a basketball team not shooting the ball very well, but they can, you know, play great defense, and just being the tough teams, mentally tough teams, and just like in golf, same way, you know, guys that are tough mentally are the ones that make it. So
You played golf with your dad and with Bob Leslie sometimes?
I played with Bobby Leslie before, absolutely.
And they wanted to win every time.
Absolutely, they're both two of the most competitive people you ever would meet in your life. They were both. If it was tiddlywinks or pool or whatever it was, they wanted to win.
Okay, I interviewed Jim Bowden, who was on the Eastwood State Championship team in 1976. And he and almost everyone that I read about these two men said the same thing you just said. Tough-minded, competitive.
Absolutely.
But also knowing how to lose. They knew how to lose. They wanted to win, but they knew if they lost, they weren't losers.
I think that their whole deal, I think, I know my dad and I know Bobby Leslie were the same way. They would be okay with it if a team gave it everything they had and it didn't work out. But I don't think they'd be okay with it if they saw that there was something out that the team could have performed a little better. As far as losing, you know, that's part of it. They hated losing, but they would accept it.
Right.
But it was not something that either one of them, you know, it was not something that they were, you know, went down very easy for them. So
Exactly. Now, even now, when you're sitting around and remembering memories, the crystal moments, when you were very young, it didn't mean a lot to you at that time. But what are the ones that keep coming up the most that people want to talk about with you?
There's a lot of games. I mean, there were so many unbelievable games that I can remember. You know, from when Archibald came on board, and you know, Nate Archibald, and at the Coliseum, you know, being 10 points behind with 2 minutes to go, and somehow beating Utah with no shot clock, no three-point line. Games like that, I always wish that they could put together a collage of those games of, you know, a couple minutes of each one of them. You know, the BYU game when there was the triple overtime and there was a big fight at the end of the game. You know, I thought that was, I was always amazed, you know, even saying it right now to you, Leon, that at the end of that game, you know, Luster Goodwin punched Scott Sinek. You know, he 4 or 5 seconds to go in the game. You think, why in the world would a guy do something like that? Well, the BYU player was calling him the N-word all the way down the court. I don't know in this day and age that would have ever gotten by. I think the whole country would have amassed into El Paso, but my dad did not allow that to become public. You kind of wondered, why did Pony Goodwin not get suspended for that? You know, like Kent Lockhart came off the bench, and he was really mad at him for that, but he kept BYU from really being embarrassed nationally for what the guy did, and did something that I think had been going on for a while. You can imagine an all-white team coming in and playing a team that was probably predominantly black, right, and using that kind of language and getting away with it. But I was always proud of my dad for. I think a lot of people would have hammered them for that.
Yeah, I want to share something about your dad in that respect, because from time to time we would have lunch together there. I didn't go off campus and go to where they had the watering hole or whatever, but we'd visit there sometimes. He was really elated as he was winning and going to the national championship. Then he comes back and he starts getting hate mail. And he said things like, I don't know if I should ever have done this or not. He would tell us about it in the faculty lounge, but he never read anything from those letters. And he protected your mother also. He would go play the race card.
To this day, she didn't. I mentioned it to her maybe in the last couple of years. About 6 months before he passed away, we were up. He was actually able to go up with me to go hit some balls at Coronado, and he mentioned, he says, you know, your mother, you know, she didn't know until I told her really that there was some of the letters actually came from El Paso. There was a few of them, just a few of them that really scared him.
Right.
And that we were running off from campus, and I was 3 or 4 years old, and he was really kind of worried about that. Right. But some of the letters that he did get from the guys from Alabama or whatever, in the South, professor at a university. Yeah. And it was, looked like it was from Billy Bob from the Sticks that had written it. And it shocked him a little bit that he knew that there was the rednecks and the racists that were out there, but seeing it from an educated person really shocked him. Yeah. And he did, the rest of them, I mean, he threw them away, and they were, from both sides being exploited by the, some of the people from the black community, that thought that he was exploiting blacks, and so he kind of got it from both sides, and it's funny that he got reprimanded, or he got handed it. That was pretty hard on him, but it also allowed after that for other schools to start recruiting black players. It was kind of he got hit for it, and
he opened the door,
and everybody, and then schools, like I think is one of the things he was most proud of, Leon, was that in '66, '67, the Southwest Conference was all white, and in I think '67, '68, it was all black. Yeah. And it didn't take very long at all for that to, I think people realize it's kind of like what he told Stephen A. Smith in the Frankly Speaking I think it was when the players got inducted into the Hall of Fame, which he was so thrilled about. He thought he wasn't sure if he should have said this. He called me, and he'd never asked me his opinion about what he had said, but Stephen A. Smith asked him, he says, "Now, when you guys upset Kentucky," he goes, "Now, Stephen," he says, "Now, Stephen, when is it an upset when 5 black guys beat 5 white guys?" So he kind of thought, I hope he didn't open up the doors or can of worms on that one. But
okay, I want to read something. I rarely read anything on this program, but I do want to read something from newspaper articles here. When Bob Leslie died, I was out of town when I got the news that he had died, and I have a son that graduated from Eastwood High School in 1980, I think it was. A granddaughter just graduated from there this year, 2015. Here we are in September of 2015. And your mom is quoted in the newspaper, the El Paso Times, about Bob Leslie. She said, "I just hope I can talk about it without crying. We were in Headley, and Bobby came there to live with the family. We even offered to let him stay with us, even though we had 4 little boys. But he stayed with a good family in Headley, and he was a darn good basketball player. It was just delightful to have him. He was a good student, a smart kid, never gave anybody any trouble. Don and I were both so happy we could come out here to play for Don at Texas Western." She said, "Bobby was a part of our life for a long time. We were lucky to have him in our lives. It was a very dear part of our lives." So these are the kind of things that we heard, that your father, a coach, was not just a coach, he was a role model for many other people, a role model for many others that became coaches. So let me give you a chance to talk about that. El Paso did not just have Don Haskins and Bob Leslie. Tell us about some of these others your dad had an influence on.
Well, and Bobby Leslie being one of them, my dad always said he was one of the purest shooters he had ever seen. He was unbelievable. And he was my dad and Bobby Leslie were so much alike as far as they were country boys that were tough, hard-nosed guys, and they knew how to, they knew how to win games. Mm-hmm. Jim Forbes, Nolan Richardson, we know right. Nobody has done what Nolan's done. I think one of the most accomplished.
Winning at all levels of basketball.
All levels, unbelievable, incredible. Jim Forbes, Alvis Glidewell, Tony Harper. How about Tony Harper? Guy Crenshaw. We've had so many. I think Kenny John. There's just been a number of great high school coaches that have. I know I'm forgetting some of them. Charles Quisenberry, going back and, when he had Charles Quisenberry had Jim Forbes and Gus Bailey on the same team.
Well, it's easy to forget some of this because remember, next year is the 50th anniversary of the championship.
No, I'm talking about, but even through time,
Yeah.
through the last 50 years, that
Oh, my
there's been
gosh.
so many unbelievable high school coaches. And I know my dad always said that a lot of those guys could have been great college coaches. They just decided not to do that.
Right.
They decided that they wanted to be high school coaches. And we've got some true Hall of Famers here. And right here in El Paso, people need to, kind of take a look around. What we've got here is really amazing, just an unbelievable talent of coaches, and some of the players that we've had in El Paso have been pretty incredible too.
All right. Well, there's a movie producer, Charlie Min. He's a documentary movie
Right.
producer. He did a program about the 1976 Troopers, March of the Troopers. I believe that's what the name of
Right.
that documentary is. And it's a wonderful, wonderful video, and it shows some of this, all of the stories we're talking about. And then a movie came out about the championship here, Glory Road. And I know some people, when they saw that, and were talking to me about it, they said, we thought that Adolph Rupp was more of a racist than the movie portrayed him. And yet I think your father realized you didn't want to play that kind of game because you're falling into that trap. So they downplayed a bit of Rupp's statement. So did you hear that discussion going on?
Well, yes. I mean, my dad always kind of felt sorry for him, even amazingly so, with the, the Southeast Conference, the Southwest Conference. None of them had black players. My dad's coach, who, Mr. Iba, Henry Iba, he called him Mr. Iba. He had so much respect for, did not have a black player.
That was in Oklahoma.
And that was in Oklahoma, and so. Adolph Rupp was just a product of the times that, if I think eventually he did have a black player. It was El Paso afforded my dad the opportunity to bring in some players that a lot of other places he wouldn't have been able to do that. And so Adolph Rupp, he made some. I think some of the comments like TWC stood for two white coaches, and my dad, there was stuff, but I think there was one point where they were off, where they were at the coaches, the Coach of the Year award. They were co-coaches of the year, and I think were going to try to put this in the movie, and they didn't. But that Adolph Rupp kind of, when they saw each other, that he kind of, in my dad's words, kind of acted cool to him, and he says Rupp thought he could intimidate me. He says the only person that ever intimidated him was Henry Iba, and he says, and I was damn cool right back to him. So he did feel like Rupp was in a spot, and there was that's just like I said, it was the mid '60s.
It was the culture,
and his school and their fans, there was a lot of racial tension back then.
That was Kentucky in that final game.
And Kentucky being, they were they were the
top of the heat for a long time.
Kings of the game, and which they still are, I get, really. I mean, but he was, my dad always, just felt like he had the thing that hurt him was when they, the Sports Illustrated, when they wrote articles about, how they took advantage of players and they exploited them, and there was a lot of, one of his regrets was not suing Sports Illustrated for what they did, and then James Menchner writing Sports in America and using excerpts from that, and had, so there was that, but the movie, I think my dad's regret on the movie was that they didn't bring Herman Carr into it. And Herman Carr was a young man that was a black player. He was in Enid, Oklahoma. My dad was good friends with, became friends with.
Yes, okay.
And he was as good a player. He always thought Herman was as good a player as he was, or better. And my dad had become Mr. Oklahoma, could go anywhere in the country. He said Herman Carr was as good as me or better. And he played at a black school. He didn't get all the write-ups in the paper, but in his mind, his parents were always, of the kind that all men were created equal. And they had Herman over to his house, and he went over to Herman's house, and so he was naive to think that when Herman Carr, he said, Herman, where are you going to go to college? And Herman said, I'm going to go join the Army. Oh. And at that point, he realizes, says, wow, you can go get killed for your country, but you can't go play at an American university.
Or stay in some hotels and motels.
And, well, I mean, you couldn't go play for a school, I mean, regardless of whether you could go. And so that really hit home to him, and that was the huge influence in his mind. And that's why he wished that Herman Carr had been. They tried to work that into the movie, and that was why he really because he said, if you don't want him, I'll take him. I mean, it just didn't understand, why would you not take a guy based on his color? Why wouldn't you take him based on his ability? And if it was a great white player or a great black player or a great Hispanic player, it did not matter. It was if you could play basketball.
I have a visual memory right now of the night they won the championship. We were living in an apartment over here on the east side. It was owned by Joe Yarbrough, who was very active here, builder, developer, land developer. We had a little small black and white TV set, and my wife was fixing some food or something, watching these little people running back and forth on this black and white television set, and all of these things. Bobby Joe Hill steals another one, okay? And then when that final buzzer goes, she throws food all over the side of the wall in the living room. And so Shanna is her name, and she threw the food all over the side there in the house. But we were glad for that victory.
Absolutely.
There's a picture right there.
Well, that's amazing. You think about it, really, that we were able to beat all the best teams in the country here in little old El Paso. Well, I'll tell you what, we're right now, today, we've got one of the best coaching staffs in the country. I think one of the top 5 coaches in the country, in Tim Floyd, and we are blessed to have. And Tim is family. You know, he came here and helped us turn things around in the late '70s, and was a huge reason for the resurrection back at the late '70s and all the way through the '80s and '90s. So it was.
Well, I know one of the sad memories for your mother. I went to the Willie Cager retirement party. Willie played on that team, and she was there. And the fact that Don was not able to go and do some of the things. Did you go to Washington, D.C. when the president had the group go to Washington, D.C.?
Yes, I was told I was not going to go. My dad was in the hospital, and he said, "You guys go," and we went, and it was really an unbelievable event. But my dad got to talk. When we were doing the movie at the White House, we were at the movie theater there. He talked to President Bush, and it was funny. President Bush got on the phone, started talking, and then he didn't talk much, and then he said, "Okay, go." He got to, I think my dad just thanking him for what they were doing for everybody, but that's something, I know he'd have loved to do, but it wasn't always, doing those type of things, but he was in the hospital, and I know he would have absolutely been there, but it was just amazing. I think the accolades that finally occurred after a number of years. I know they'd asked him for years and years about doing a movie, and he finally relented to doing it because he.
Well, how did he feel about a name being called Glory Road?
He wished it had been called Texas Western.
Texas Western.
Just Texas Western.
And a building named after him.
No, he didn't care about that.
I know he was a very humble man in that respect.
And we're also talking about Bobby Leslie.
Same for Bobby Leslie. He put his name on the building.
As humble and as shy. Really, my dad was he was kind of a shy person. Yeah. Bobby was even more to the extreme of shyness.
Isn't that strange?
It's just, I think that's part of their greatness, I think, was the fact that they knew how to focus and their attention on something, but being able to go talk about it really wasn't. They knew how to coach and go talk to their players, but talking about themselves wasn't something Coach Leslie or my dad really were crazy about.
They were both workhorses, not show horses.
That's exactly right.
That's what they were.
That's right.
That's a good way to look at that. Well, we have just a few minutes left. Any other special things you'd like to mention? A special golf game you had with your dad or Bobby?
I remember when we played, the last time when I played with Bobby, I know we were trying to get a game up, have a little action. My dad told me, he said, this is like, he told me, he said, you don't get too much action with Leslie. He knows how to work it. He knows how to play, and he knows how to make a bet. So we had a good time. It was great when we getting to play with Bobby, and I think we played at Lone Star, and he was a heck of a golfer, and so was like Nolan, all the guys. It's just unbelievable. All the players.
They were coordinated. They thought fast. They could move fast.
They did. That's exactly right. And I want to say one last thing about Coach Leslie. That's to win a state championship in the state of Texas. Now that's like winning a national championship.
Exactly.
It's unreal to think the teams they had to beat. Here you get, and you don't get to recruit or anything. You get the neighborhood. Hopefully you've got some good kids in the neighborhood, and they sure did.
Oh, right.
In fact, three or four of them, my dad recruited and played at UTEP. So, Coach Leslie's accomplishment of winning the state championship, that's hopefully we'll see it happen again. I just don't know when, but it'll be a tough one for somebody to pull off.
Well, when I interviewed Jim Bowden on this show, I asked him a question about his best play ever. He said, "What's his best play ever?" He said, "First, I want to tell you about my worst play ever." And he talked about a bad play and a loss. And then when they won the state championship, made a great play. And Bob Leslie told him, "Okay, you made a bad play now, but there'll be a time you're going to make a great play."
That's right.
And that's what good coaching is about, isn't it?
Absolutely. They were both great coaches in their own way, in the way they did it. And I think, to me, it always stems from the family tree, from Henry Iba to my father, to Bobby Leslie's, to Nolan Richardson's, and they did it their own way. But what they had to work from was all basically came back to hard-nosed defense and playing tough, mental toughness, and from there, how you ran your offense and all those things I think it was up to each coach, but I think the foundation came really from Henry Iba on through all those players, my father and Bobby Leslie and Nolan Richardson and Tony Harper, Jim Forbes, all of them.
Goodness gracious.
Yeah.
Well, I tell you, Steve, it's been wonderful to have you here.
Thank you very much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Memory Lane in El Paso, Texas.
That's right. We got to make some more now.
Okay. Yes, a lot more. Well, thank you for watching this show, and I'm sure that you enjoyed it. And we want to bring some future shows that you'll be proud of here in El Paso, Texas. We're proud of our sports teams, and we're proud of the team that puts this show together. I'm Leon Blevins of El Paso Community College.
David Latin. Harry Flournoy. Willie Worsley. Bobby Joe Hill. Neville Shedd. Willie Cager. David Palacio. Jerry Armstrong. Louis Bedoin. Worston Arnott. Ogo Rayleigh. Dick Meyer. And their coach, Don Haskins.